Please be seated, Your Honor. The jury's all present and accounted for.
Thank you, Your Honor. We are back on the record in C-377-239, stated by Mr. Devyn Michaels, may the record reflect that Ms. Michaels is present and current attorney, deputy district attorney on behalf of the state, and both parties given into the presence of our jury.
Yes.
All right, statement for you, Mr.
Detective Luke Good.
Okay, and sir, you can just stand and further swear you.
Good afternoon.
You solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this action shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
You may have a seat.
Thank you.
And officer, if you please state your full name and spell it for the record.
Yes, my name is Luke Good. First name Luke, last name Good.
Statement of your
What do you do for a living, sir?
I'm a detective at the Henderson Police Department.
How long have you been a detective with the Henderson Police Department?
I've been a detective for a little over 4 years now.
And in which unit are you currently assigned?
Currently, I'm in the Digital Forensics Laboratory.
And what does that entail, sir?
In the Digital Forensics Lab, we handle essentially all investigative technology. We do extractions on cell phones, we do cell site analysis and call detail records, vehicle stuff, anything that has a technological component or a computer or a cell phone involved, it comes to our lab.
What type of training and education do you have in order to do what you do?
Well, I have a bachelor's degree from Columbia Southern University in information systems and cybersecurity. And then we go through an extensive amount of training for my role in particular, just because of the nature of technology and how complex it can get. I've trained at the National Computer Forensics Institute in Hoover, Alabama. That's sponsored by the Secret Service. And then several other trainings with a lot of the vendors that we utilize. That gives us a good foundation to use their tools and just the knowledge that we need to do our job. That includes Cellular, magnet forensics. I'm certified through them. I'm certified through the NW3C, which is the National White Collar Crime Center that's sponsored by the DOJ. So we have to have a lot of training and qualifications just to earn those certifications.
And you mentioned a couple of software programs. For today's purposes, what are the relevant software programs we're dealing with?
So for today's purpose, we're dealing with cell phone records. I utilize CastViz, which is a software that's created and maintained by the FBI. And then I also used ZX, it's called Trax now, which is just another company that produces the mapping software that we utilize.
And have you received training in those two areas of software?
Yes.
Is it fair to say that technology evolves relatively rapidly?
Correct.
And as a result of that, you receive ongoing trainings as through the course of your career as things change?
Yes.
With regard to today's testimony, you mentioned a couple of terms: digital forensics, DFL, Celebrite, Trax. What is it that you are focusing in on, and what is it that you're familiar with, but this wasn't your role in this case?
With respect to today?
Yes. So are you dealing with the stuff that's extracted from phones, or are you dealing with something else?
So specifically today, because we're all cross-trained in the digital forensics lab on a lot of different disciplines, today I'm specifically focusing on and speaking to the cell site analysis, which is call detail records.
What is a call detail record?
Call detail records is what all the cell companies maintain: Verizon, T-Mobile, all the major carriers, AT&T. They maintain records of every transaction that occurs on their cellular network. So every time you make a call, every time you send a text, stuff like that all gets documented and stored. And since there's cell towers all over the place, they also document which cell tower was being utilized at the time, which is where we can get investigative information.
And we won't dive too far into it just yet. Is it fair to say that you are not dealing with content of what may be on an actual cellular device?
Correct. No content, only the transactions and the connection information through the network.
And have you become aware that a separate detective in your unit has been assigned with dealing with the digital forensic downloads of the devices?
Yes.
And that would be whom?
That would be Detective Campbell.
And he would deal with any content, correct?
Yes, anything on the phone is what he would deal with.
So you're talking about records stored with outside your agency. They're actually stored by very big companies, correct?
Correct.
What companies are those when it comes to this?
So the three major carriers in the United States are AT&T and T-Mobile, and then Verizon, but we're not using Verizon in this case.
Okay, so we're focusing in on AT&T and T-Mobile.
Correct.
In past experience, are you familiar with those types of records?
Yes.
And do the T-Mobile records look a little bit different from the AT&T records?
A little bit, yes.
Did you prepare an exhibit today in order to accurately explain your findings and testimony to the jury?
I did.
And Your Honor, this has been provided to defense counsel. I'd move for the admission of exhibit number 3.
No objection.
Number 3, is that what you said?
Yes.
Okay, 3 will be admitted without objection.
Thank you. And sir, does exhibit 3, you created that, correct?
I did.
And is there an exact mirror image of that exhibit that's going back to the jury on your supercomputer there?
Yes.
Okay, so for ease of use, you're referencing the same exact files, you're just not plugging in the extra thumb drive.
That's correct.
If you could just pull up the content of the entirety of the disk.
Yep, and that would be, I have it saved on my desktop here, and I already have it open. This would be the content of the USB flash drive.
Okay, and I see 7 different files, correct?
Correct.
Is there any particular file that you would like to start with that kind of gives an overview of what we should be expecting from these other folders?
We can just start going through the folders.
Okay, let's start with folder number 1. Back out a second. Did you title that yourself?
Yes.
And what is that titled for the record?
So to title them, I used the phone number and then the associated user of that phone number that I was provided by the investigating detectives. So for this one, the first folder is the phone number 702-353-3823, and it's Andrea Reyes CDRs.
And were you provided those by Detective Ozawa?
Yes.
If you could open that folder, please. There's 2 separate subfolders. One says mapped data and the other says provided files. Can I presume that the second folder is what you received to analyze?
Correct.
If you could open that. Subfolder CDR records, open that. And then there are several files. It looks like some Excel, some PDF.
Yes.
Go ahead and start with the COR affidavit, certification file. Tell us, what are we looking at here?
So every time a detective sends a search warrant to the carriers, all of this information, we don't have to have the phone in hand. All of the information that I'm going to go over is stored at the actual carriers. So we send a search warrant to them asking for the information that we're looking for in our investigation. When they send it with us, they send us a certificate just saying that all the information is accurate and they're attesting to the legitimacy of it.
Okay. You can close that out. Tell us, what type of records did you receive with regard to Ms. Reyes' phone?
I received the call detail records that document all of the actual call transactions, and then I also received data sessions as well. Anytime that you're on YouTube or Google connecting to a cell tower, it logs those transactions too. So those are 2 separate documents. We also have the subscriber information document too.
Let's start with that. For the record, you're opening up Excel sub TIPCO.
Yes.
And what are we looking at here, Jim?
This is generally the subscriber information. This one they didn't fill out a lot of, but typically in this you'll see the subscriber name. Usually that's the person using the phone or a family member or something like that. This one is actually relatively blank compared to the other ones, so they just didn't populate a lot of this. But you can see that it went into effect 11/29 of 2022.
Okay, and what is the phone number? Where is it found on this document?
Right up here in the top left. This cell.
And that matches the folder name that you just provided?
Yes.
With regard to subscriber information, different phone companies require different things when you start an account. Is that correct?
Correct.
Some companies require a subscriber name, some require identification, others don't, correct?
Correct.
With regard to T-Mobile, is it shocking to you that there is a missing subscriber name, or is that something you've seen?
No, this is not uncommon.
Okay. And there are ways in which detectives can determine who is actually in possession of this number outside kind of your expert knowledge.
Correct.
Like they could call them on the number and see who answers.
Correct.
For example, okay. With regard to this particular document, is there anything else you need to convey to the jury?
No, and the document, it states the phone number in here so that we clearly know that these records are associated with this phone number.
And that's actually listed as the MSISDN. What is that? I'd have to pull it up, but it's like the Mobile Subscriber International Serial Number for the device. So anytime you see MSISDN, there's a lot of acronyms. This is always the phone number of the device. Got it. You can close out. Now there's one
separate document for the CDRs, and then one for the data sessions. Tell us how those differ, what we're looking at.
So the CDRs is going to be the actual call detail records. Typically, it's always going to be the dialing and receiving calls. Anytime there's a call transaction with the cellular device and another device on the network or off the network, it's going to include text messages. So any kind of transaction that traverses the network that's related to communications on the device, whether it's calls, text, stuff like that.
What about the data sessions?
The data sessions are specifically for internet connectivity, and it'll say in the actual file how many bytes up and down are occurring with each transaction. So if you're browsing the web, if you're using YouTube, something like that is what would be in the data sessions. It doesn't tell us what the data is or what sites they were connecting to, but just they were using mobile data.
Okay, and so let's step back for a moment, and if you could explain to the jury how it is that a cell device actually interacts with a cell tower, generally.
Sure. So you can think of cell towers kind of as giant Wi-Fi routers. So it's using radio frequencies to connect to the cell phone in your pocket, for example. Whenever there's any kind of transaction that occurs or you send or receive a call, it's reaching out through radio frequencies to typically the nearest cell tower. It's establishing a connection wirelessly, and then it's using that cell network to transfer any data or any call that you may have through the network to where it's supposed to go and back and forth to your device. So you're always going to be connected to a cellular tower, and you'll notice if you go into rural areas, you lose connection, you're just so far away from cell towers or you're blocked, you're not going to be connected.
And you said generally you're going to be connected to the nearest cell tower. You mean nearest geographically?
Correct.
Okay. Are there some exceptions to that, what is a general?
Yeah, and I actually have some exhibits prepared if you would like to go into that. It can really help illustrate it a little better. So
while you pull that up, just a couple more follow-up questions.
Sure.
So the jury understands, if I have my phone and it's locked, right? Like I'm not doing any activity on it. Is my phone interacting with the nearest cell tower at this point in time?
Oftentimes, yes.
Why is that, or how is that?
So the cell towers are constantly trying to keep you connected to the network, and oftentimes the cell towers, especially if you're moving, you're getting transferred to other towers. They're constantly gauging connectivity to you. If you're in a crowded space, network traffic can sometimes be a factor. So if that tower is becoming congested, then it'll move you to another best available connection. So there's always stuff going on in the background with cell towers to keep you connected and to give you the best service.
So I don't need to be actively on my phone sending a text to interact with the tower.
Correct.
And likewise, if my phone is quiet or in sleep mode in my pocket and I receive a text, that could be coming through, or has to be coming through a tower as well.
Correct.
Okay. And what did you want to illustrate with this?
So I have a few photos just to kind of help make this concept a little more clear. So this is an example of the mapping that we do. We'll come back to these. So the data in the top left is not as relevant now as the actual imagery that you see on the screen. But what we have here is at the base of this triangle is going to be a cell tower. As you're driving around, I'm sure you've probably seen them. They're usually three-sided. They look like giant triangular poles. Each one of those three sides is an antenna. So most cell towers have a set of three antennas that face out in three different directions. So what we can glean from that investigatively when we request these call detail records is it will log the transactions, it'll log the connections with the cell tower location that you're using, and then it will also tell us which of those three antennas on the tower your device was connected to. And from that, we can typically infer distance from the tower and the direction from the tower based on the density of other towers in the area. So let me try to break that down. But this just shows an example of our mapping software. The big red section is just showing you which direction the angle is facing. It doesn't mean anything's in that red area. It's just letting you know that the antenna is facing that way. So if you were at this house, for example, you would be connecting to this antenna on the cell tower. And again, there's three antennas. So if you were off over this way, say in this neighborhood to the right, I don't know if you can see my mouse over there or not, but if you're over to the right, you're typically going to connect to the antenna that faces that direction. That's not always true 100% of the time. Sometimes there's geographic interferences and stuff like that that could cause another tower in the area to be the best signal. Or it can even cause, this line is not necessarily a hard line, it can even cause you to connect to the other nearby antenna just because that one has a stronger, better signal. And we'll get into that a little bit more.
Yeah, in a moment. Just to kind of break it down. So if this particular cell tower, or this particular cell tower, has 3 antennas on it facing different directions.
Correct.
They cover 360 degrees.
That's correct.
But they're split in 3, so it's 120 each.
Yep, correct.
So this angle we're seeing, this particular antenna is 120 degrees of the total coverage area of this particular tower.
That's correct.
And you mentioned that sometimes there's a little bleed back, or I can't remember the term you use. I use bleed back.
Yeah.
Do you have something to illustrate that?
I do.
Go ahead.
Yep. So we'll get into that. And towards the end, I'll show you an example of multiple towers and how that would look. But if we zoom out a little bit, one of the questions is how can we determine then cell towers? There's documentation out there that shows they can travel in excess the signals of 20 plus miles in rural areas, and you can still get a connection. So in cities, we have multiple towers all throughout this area. Just in this image, there's multiple cell towers that you could be connecting to. So how do we know where that coverage starts and stops? There's a couple different ways. Typically, we can 100% map the direction from the tower that the antenna is facing. And then from there, and based on the cell tower density, we can start to infer coverage area, especially in an urban environment, because typically you're not going to be connecting to a cell tower across the entire city. Most of the time, you are going to connect to the nearest tower, and in my experience mapping these, I'll see that you will connect to the nearest tower, and usually the antenna that's facing you. So another way to visualize that, though, by estimating the coverage area with other towers in the area, would be this. And this is we call it the horizontal plane. So if you're looking down on a cell tower and you slice the coverage, this is what it looks like. And it's just a good representation to kind of see the coverage area. In real life, shapes aren't perfect. Even the wedge that I showed you previously with the little pie slice here, it's not a perfect shape. And I mean, I'm sure everybody's experienced that as they've dropped calls driving behind buildings, stuff like that. So there's a lot of shadowing that occurs. This edge is not perfect. So just keep in mind this is illustrative to give you a general idea of the direction someone is from the cell tower and where we can generally expect that coverage to be. So,
go ahead.
Okay. For example, and just to show the difference, this shows the direction from the tower. If we estimate coverage using this is Trax mapping with their estimates and their algorithms and their understanding of the density of the towers in the area. This is the size of this particular tower that they came up with. Each tower is going to have a different size, again, based on how close other towers are to it. But the coverage area would be that entire red area. In theory, that's theoretical. And then this is just them overlaid, so you can really see the difference of the two mapping methods that I utilize.
Got it. You mentioned a couple terms, density and shadowing, and I want to just try to use my layman's terms and see if this explains it a little bit clearer. Fair to say that if you're in downtown Vegas, or say on the Strip, let's go with the Strip, there are a lot more cell towers down there than there are if you're out at Pabco Road on the way to Lake Mead.
Correct.
And so that might narrow in kind of your inference as to where the phone is, correct?
Absolutely.
And if you're out in that rural area, you may be hitting off a device, but you could be like a tower, and you could be like 15 to 20 miles away from that tower.
Correct.
In this particular area, we're talking about a residential neighborhood, correct?
Yes.
The Paladura neighborhood?
Yes.
Are there several cell towers within this area?
Yes.
And likewise, we're going to be talking a little bit later about a Porcupine Rim address. Is that a residential neighborhood?
Yes.
Are there several towers with that in that area?
Yes.
Okay, so it's not like there's one tower servicing this massive 20-mile thing. There's a bunch of cell towers in that.
Correct.
You were going to go on, I believe, to...
Yeah. And on that note, there's in cities and urban environments, we like it from an investigative perspective because just as he was saying, in the more dense urban environments, you're going to have a greater density of towers, which reduces the area that each tower services and covers. So in an example like this, you're going to have a lot more towers than you would in a rural area, which actually helps us dial in the general geographic area where somebody may be located or where somebody may be using that cell tower. Another technology, so there's two main concepts to the mapping and the location aspect of CDRs, and the second concept here is timing advance. What this is doing is it's using the same angles, the same antennas, so out of the 3 antennas, what we get with timing advance is the network, the cell tower, will send a signal to the device, and then the device will immediately bounce it back to the tower. Radio frequencies are the same material that light is. Radio frequencies travel at the speed of light. We know that speed, so when the tower sends the signal to the device and it bounces back, It's like an echo, like a sonar ping, and it uses the amount of time that it takes in fractions of a second to be able to calculate the distance from the tower that the device is.
So before you go on, just summarize it. Is your device required to be sending or receiving text messages or calls in order for the timing advance to come into play?
No, a lot of the times we see this occurring in the background.
Why is that?
The cell networks, and again, this was not designed for law enforcement purposes. This is all analytics on the cell network and cell carrier side. So they're trying to keep track of where the device is. They're trying to send out pings to make sure the device is still connected. It's all stuff to optimize the connectivity of the device and determine what the appropriate tower it should be connected to is. And just data for the carriers as well, because they're getting those distance measurements to see where devices are connecting to their antennas.
And to be fair, those carriers are big old corporations.
Correct.
Their probably their bottom line is dollars.
Correct.
Right, so they want to give the best product, and so they're constantly testing and kind of refining their towers, etc.
Yes. And that's what all of this is for. And what I have here is several examples mapped together. And this is another tool that we use investigatively, because if there's a lot of timing pings, one, you can track the movements of people. But if you get a lot of overlap, because we don't know exactly where on this arc they are. We know the distance from the tower, and you measure that distance with the whole length of the antenna. So that equal distance from the tower gives you a circular shape. We get a little bit of a half circle here. And we know that they're roughly that distance from the tower. It's pretty accurate, within a few meters. And they're going to be somewhere along this line. So when we start getting a lot of activity in an area and the cell phone's bouncing off different towers, we start getting lines intersecting, and we start getting lines developing next to each other. And for us, we often use this to locate suspects in crimes. In this particular case and example, we're using known locations, but it just kind of helps validate. You can see that you get a lot of that crisscrossing in areas that you know to be relevant to the investigation.
Let me stop you before you move on. So you said we use this a lot to locate suspects who committed crime. So initially you said this wasn't initially created as a law enforcement tool. This is stuff that the big cell phone companies are doing on their end.
Yes.
This is something you rely on very frequently in the law enforcement world.
Yes.
In fact, it's becoming more and more important to our investigation, particularly in homicide. Fair?
Correct.
You said that you sometimes use this to track and locate suspects. Have you, throughout the course of your experience, seen this and relied upon it? And if a phone says it's at these intersected arcs, that suspect is actually at that location?
Correct. And I started using CDRs as a property crimes detective, and a lot of times we would determine the suspect's phone number, and now we have to try to locate them to see where they're storing stolen things, stuff like that. So we would frequently be able to use these arcs to at least get a good idea of what street even that they live on, and then we'd be able to locate their car and locate them. So it gives us, again, it's not going to be a precise point like GPS. There's caveats to all of these, and the shapes aren't perfect, but reliably I've been able to solve cases and get within a pretty close distance of a suspect's house that I didn't know the address to.
And you mentioned GPS points. I'm glad you said that. So we've recently heard testimony from a detective, Spangler. You know him?
Yes, sir.
Spangler was tasked with dealing with the burla, which is GPS. Is that correct?
Yes.
And those precise GPS points are actually like breadcrumbs moving throughout the valley.
Yes, sir.
That's not what you're dealing with here.
No. What we're dealing with is we get a general geographic area of coverage. A GPS point will be able to put you within a 2 or 3 meter radius sometimes. What we're looking at is entire neighborhoods and the general direction from the tower. So I can say a device is in this general geographic area. However, I can't say exactly where in this shape it is located.
And let me just clarify something. Detective Spangler's responsibility was that GPS point.
Correct.
The burla.
Yes.
And it'll be up to the jury to decide if this is consistent with that. Anything you're doing today with this, you're not relying on any information from the Nissan Armada's burla system.
Correct.
This is entirely separate, and this is call detail records and timing events.
Correct. And in fact, when I map these records, I like to know as little about the case as possible, ideally, just because I'm able to focus on what the records are telling me, and I try to eliminate that bias from other sources, because then you know where to look. So if you don't have that information when you start the mapping, It's interesting how telling the records can be, and then you can cross-reference that with other data afterwards.
And you can also cross-reference it with things like video surveillance or times where witnesses say somebody is and all that stuff.
Correct.
But you're not doing that, that's for them to decipher.
That's correct.
Okay, go ahead.
Then we just have a couple more. This is another example. So if we go back a few slides, this is one tower that services that address. This is another tower that services that address. So you'll see there is a lot of overlap. And again, you'll have a couple options to connect to, and the cell network is constantly working in the background to keep you connected to the strongest and most reliable signal source. And again, typically that is going to be the closest tower and the direction you're facing. And I'll get into the caveats in a little bit, but just as another example of another tower in that area, and I should have overlaid them, but we'll see that in a little bit. But the coverage does overlap so that you don't drop calls. Obviously, there can't be dead spots between towers. And then this is again mapped with both features. The little, we call it a wedge. That's a wedge shape, a little pie slice. And then if we're trying to estimate or just show a visual estimate of the coverage area, based on the tower density, this is the coverage area that we're getting per Trax's calculations.
Okay, before you move on, I just want to ask, up in the left corner, it has your event number. It has August 7, 2023 is the date, map CDR records from AT&T in red. And then a little bit further down, it says time frame 0200 hours PDT to 212 PDT. Is that Pacific time?
Yes, Pacific time, specifically Pacific Daylight Time, because every time the clocks change, it puts us on a different time standard.
Okay, so we previously heard the term UTC through another witness. What does that mean to you?
And that's Universal Coordinated Time. It's UTC, and that's the standard that we receive all the records in. That's the standard time that the entire world can utilize if we wanted to be on the same page. And then when you have time zones, you calculate the offset based off UTC. So UTC is always 0, and then PDT, for example, is UTC minus 7 hours, and that's how we would get to PDT.
And it's either -7 or -8,
Correct.
Depending on the time of year.
Yeah, we just switched to -8 with the time change.
Okay, and so if we're talking about August 7th records, you're doing a -7 to the record.
Correct.
Are the AT&T records themselves going to be reflecting UTC time?
Yes.
And so anytime this jury sees a map like this, you have already done the conversion for them.
Correct.
If they want to go back and look at the original records, they have to do the math and subtract 7 based on the time of year in the original raw records.
Correct.
Got it. Okay. Are there more
Yep, there's a few more.
explanatory slides? Okay, go ahead.
This is an example of two different carriers that service the same area. So the blue is T-Mobile, and then the red is going to be the tower that AT&T utilizes. However, these towers, even though they're two different networks, they are using two different towers to service the same general geographic area. So this is just what that looks like. And then I wanted to show this example just because we do get these outliers sometimes where you see this line from the, and again my mouse is on there, okay. So you see this line, and you'll notice that this little house here is going to be outside of that line, outside of the expected coverage area based on the wedge that we're looking at. However, and this is why I wanted to show the alternative method of mapping, if we utilize this H-plane, and the shape of that H-plane is determined from a bunch of scientific testing through the antenna manufacturers. They're able to use a chamber, it's called an anechoic chamber is the scientific name for it. They're able to basically measure the shape of the coverage area of the radio frequencies, and that's where this shape essentially comes from. So you can see that it propagates out from the tower, not in perfect lines, and sometimes you will have that coverage a little bit back from where the wedge shows.
So we're now seeing a 249 next to the red ping and a 5657 next to the blue ping. What do those mean?
So those are just the lines, the rows from the records that it was derived from. So this is one we're mapping, and we can even pull it up live later on, and I can show and get into that. But it's referencing each one of these points in my mapping software. This is just a screenshot, but I can click it, and it'll give me a little bit more information about where that specific record came from. And the way Trax does it, which is what we're seeing here when we're using just Trax, it's referencing the actual row number that it pulled that data from. from the spreadsheet that they provided.
Okay, before you move on, just so we're clear, if the jury wanted to go back and double check one particular point, they see a 249 like that on the AT&T records, they can go to line item 249 and look for themselves on the raw records.
Correct.
Got it. Okay. Go ahead.
And all of those records, it's providing us latitude and longitude. It's providing us the antenna information. A lot of times it'll give you the rough street address as well for all the towers. So the software is designed to take all of that information from, it's just Excel spreadsheets with the phone numbers, the dialing number, the receiving number, all the information of a transaction or a call, including the location information of the towers that it was using. That's all in the boring spreadsheets. And then the software turns that into mapped data, and it allows us to see it.
Did you have more explanatory slides?
Yep, and this is one of the last two. This is just a good example I pulled from the internet where it shows it's not that perfect wedge shape that we depict in the mapping. That's just to give you a general idea, again, of the geographic area that a phone might be connecting. However, in reality, it's more like a blob. So what you can see here is the dark blue would be this antenna. It goes out to here. Sometimes it'll bleed over to the side of the lines. And again, there might be obstructions, buildings, something like that. That creates shadowing because radio frequencies behave similarly to light. They're the same material. You might have tall buildings here, so the better connection will be the cell tower that's actually further away. And then just to give you an example of a dense urban environment with all of that overlap, this is what it could look like with the various coverage blending into each other with multiple cell towers. So this is similar to a neighborhood, like what we were just looking at with all the pictures I showed you before.
Got it. So with this particular exhibit, I want to get into a moving cell phone. So if a cell phone is interacting with towers or someone's on the phone and they're driving on the freeway, is there like handoffs between these towers as the phone moves? How does that work?
Yes, and so the coverage overlaps intentionally because when you start getting away from this tower, the network is constantly measuring and keeping track of your signal strength. And once you reach a certain point, and again that can change from day to day even, you reach a certain point where the network will decide now the next closest tower is the strongest signal, and it will seamlessly transfer you to that. So you can drive around town without ever dropping a call.
Maybe.
Yeah, sometimes you do.
All right, is that the end of your explanatory
Yes.
exhibits? Okay, so let's go back to folder 1 with Andrea Reyes' CDRs.
Okay.
Go into provided files, CDRs, and then if you could open up the particular records we need to describe before you go into any mapping.
Sure, so we can open up the CDR records. So this is what it looks like when they send it to us. And what you'll see here is each column, they'll provide us, it's a ton of data. And I apologize, I wanted you all to be familiar with this before we get into the moving and the other exhibits, just because it's good to foundationally understand where all that data comes from and where all the mapping comes from. So
let's start with column A.
Column A here, we have the date, and it'll show you what date that cell transaction occurred on. And as you see, as I scroll down, the date will change. They're all in chronological order.
Column B.
Column B is the actual time in UTC.
Now, if someone on the jury wants to look at a particular line item, they've got to do their own math. They subtract 7. As a result of that, the actual date might change, correct?
Yes.
So if you're looking at like a 2 a.m. record, minus 7, you're going back 5 hours in the day before.
Well, and this first one is a good example. So on 8/2 of 2023, the first transaction we have is at 1:45 in the morning. It uses military time, so it's a 24-hour time display. So if it's 11 o'clock at night, you'll see it be 2300, similar to these. But the first one is at 1:45 in the morning, so you would have to subtract 7, and it's a little confusing because of the 12, but you just have to work it out. So it would be 1:45 a.m. minus 7 hours.
Okay, so let's skip over column C and go to column D first.
Okay.
What is that?
This is going to be the call type, so it's telling you, and there's a reference key we can get into because I don't have all of these memorized, but some of them. A couple examples like this is SMS, so that's just typical cellular messaging. So if you send or receive a text message, that is what this is. Let's see if there's.
How do we know when we're looking at a call?
So when we're looking at a call, you'll see it's going to be either MTC or MOC in these records, and you all will have the actual key as well if you're curious what these are. I reference it a lot because it's too much to memorize. There's so many different acronyms. However, when we're looking at a call, line 1 is another good example. You have the calling number and you have the dialed number. The number for the subject number of the transactions that we're looking at is always going to be on one side of those. So either they're the dialing number or they're the receiving number. So you'll see the target phone number for these records is 702-353-3823, and you'll see that 3823 on one side of every transaction. And this here is a call.
It's either the calling number or the dial number.
Correct.
Got it. And so I skipped over 3 duration to get into call type first. So when we go to your example, example at line 11, go to 11 first.
Yes, sir.
That was a text message.
Yes.
So in the duration column, we see nothing, it's blank.
Correct.
If you look above that, those are calls, and you're seeing a duration.
Correct.
So how is it that, or what does duration actually mean? Is it like the whole time I pick up my phone and I dial and then it's ringing, ringing, ringing? Or is it the time we're talking or what?
It can vary between carriers, but usually it's when you connect. So the actual time that the call is connected, so when you hear it ringing, it's not connected yet, they pick up and you'll even notice on your phone the timer starts. And that's how it's reflected in the cell network as well. So duration is approximately 30 seconds for this phone call.
Okay. And then do you know off the top of your head what happens when a call goes to voicemail, what it looks like?
Not off the top of my head, because some of these are codes. So when it says the calling number, voicemail is often 9999,
Okay.
like this.
Well, but that would be in the key, right?
Yeah, so that'll be in the key, but it'll tell you if it goes to voicemail, and then there's let me make sure there's no other columns because each carrier is a little different. No. So it would be under the call type, and or there will be an actual code in the calling number to show that it went to voicemail. So you'll see weird little numbers like this, and you would just have to reference the key to see what those mean.
Got it. Okay. So go back to the top. We've gone through first 5 or 6, I guess.
Yeah.
Let's go down the line and you tell me what's important for the jury to know about the rest of the call.
Yeah, so, and this is for the phone number ending in 3823. And so, for example, this first line is just showing that there was an incoming call from this phone number ending in 3557. The number that they dialed was our target phone number, the 3823. And then, same thing, they say it a couple different ways with T-Mobile, the destination number, the called number, the dialed number, but you'll see that that's consistent with the target phone number for the records at the top. The IMSI is the International Mobile Subscriber Identifier. That's just a serial number for the SIM card in your phone, because sometimes we'll have people changing out the SIM cards. It'll show that in the records. Sometimes the records will get messed up like that if I click too much. The IMEI, that's going to be the serial number for the device itself. So your cell phone will always have that same IMEI. That's just the digital serial number that's always attached to the device.
So let me stop you. If I keep my phone and I switch out the SIM card, the IMSI will remain, the IMSI will change, the IMEI will remain the same.
That's correct.
So the way I always say is like the IMEI is like the serial number of the phone, the IMSI is the serial number of the phone number.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
And then you'll just have some completion codes. These are things I typically worry about. The service codes, this is an example of actually a forwarded call, and I start to retain some of these as I look at these records a lot. But the 02A with T-Mobile just means that the call was forwarded. And then this is all in the key as well. So these could be important if you're kind of curious about the nature of certain calls or you see something weird. The service code tells you a little bit more about what's going on. So if the call was forwarded or there was something abnormal about it, it'll be in these service codes, and there's a corresponding key that T-Mobile provides with us. The switch names and all of these cell site IDs, this is all corresponding to the network traffic as well as the network connection points that the cell networks basically distribute all of the traffic through. So it's not as relevant. And then the more relevant part when we get to these cell sites is the actual locations. So it'll show us the latitude, the longitude, and then, like I said before, it'll give us a rough address of the cell tower, and it'll tell us the city, the state that the tower's in, the zip code. That's all part of the address here.
Got it.
And a lot of the lines are blank.
Okay. Is there anything else generally we need to describe in this type of record for the jury, or can we move on to the timing?
Nope, we can move on.
All right, go ahead.
And I don't believe there's timing advance in this
I'm
set,
sorry,
actually.
data sessions.
Data sessions.
So what are we looking at that's different from what we just looked at?
So it's different, but still similar. The MSISDN, like I said before, that you can just think of that as the acronym for the phone number. That's a fancy way of saying phone number. So it's always going to be the target record's phone number. So this is the target record phone number that we sought this information for, and the phone number associated is always going to be the same. And then what happens is this is the phone connecting to the internet through the cell network. So you can browse the web without having to connect to Wi-Fi, for example. That's because the cell network enables you to connect to the internet. It's going to assign you an IP address. Without getting into that, that's just giving you a temporary address to access the internet through, just like routers work. Cell networks work the same way. You're going to see the same familiar numbers we just saw last time with the IMEI. You're going to see the SIM card serial number, the IMSI. It gives us the start time, and it gives us an end time for the data connection.
Now, do these data connections need to be going live, or could this be something working in the background? If I leave Instagram open on my phone, this is still recording stuff.
Yeah, you can still be running in the background, or if you're driving around streaming music or something like that, that data session is always going to be open, and it's going to be handed off to other towers as you move around.
And then the T-Mobile keeps track of those records so they can charge me for all that data.
Correct.
Okay. Anything else on this that you need to explain before we move on?
Nothing too fancy. It still shows you the cell tower sites and the locations and everything, though, which is how we can map, again, the latitude, longitude. It's how we know the location of the tower they're connecting to the internet through. And then it also gives us even the amount of data that they downloaded, the amount of data that they uploaded, and it gives us a duration in seconds. So we're able to, essentially all of this, we're able to take and put into a map and be able to see how long they were connected to a record or to a tower and what tower they were connected to. So it's just important to know everything that we map and we see on the maps comes from these data sheets.
Got it. You can close out of that. Can we now move on to mapping, or is there anything else you need to explain before that?
Nope, I think we're good to move on to mapping.
All right. So you're going to back out to the Andrea Reyes CDRs and then mapped data. What is inside this file folder?
Inside this folder is what I produce. So when I get all of these files, I plug them into my software, and then this is what the software spits out. So it will map all of the data for me. There's a few things that I can do. I can change the colors and stuff like that to make it easier to represent. And then after I'm done reviewing it in the actual mapping software, I can export that to a Google Earth file so that we can open it on any computer, whether they have the software or not. So it exports it to a file that's more friendly and more accessible to everybody, which is going to be Google Earth.
Okay. And can we now move into some of this mapping?
Sure.
Let's do that.
So this is a good example to use standalone. So we'll download Google Earth. This is typically what we use. Everybody has access to it, and it's provided by Google. So all of the software is able to create a file that Google Earth can read. So I'm just traveling down to Las Vegas. Oh, and actually, this particular record, I'm going to zoom out a little bit. So,
All right. So before you move on, well, while you're moving on, I guess tell us what you're doing.
so right now I have Google Earth open. This is going to be the program that we view the map to records in. So now I'm navigating to the file, the Google Earth file that I'm able to open that I created with that record in the CDR mapping, map data. So I'm going to open the Google Earth map to export that I created. So it's going to zoom into the area of the mapping. And there's a couple things to explain here.
Yeah, go ahead.
So what we have up here in the top left is our little, and this is where it'll be more and more interesting for you guys. In the top left here, we see the time period that's displayed. So we have the records starting on 7/31 and they end on 8/21 of 2023. So right now it's showing all transactions during that time period.
Is it converted from UTC already?
Yes, I convert it in my mapping software. So I already converted it. This is PDT, so this will be -7. It'll be an hour offset from our current time because of daylight savings time that just occurred. However, it's showing me what I showed you before, these towers, and then every tower is going to have associated data with it. So it copies all the data from the spreadsheet, and it'll show me how it used that data to map it. So now we have the actual maps that we can produce from all that data on the spreadsheet.
And the date range that you were just referencing, that is the entirety of the records that you received for Andrea Ray.
Correct.
So it goes back to July 31st of 23 and then it's August 21st of 23.
Correct.
Is that common to get that amount of time in records?
Yeah, oftentimes what we'll do is if we know when an event happened, we will look for a pattern of life as well. So we'll request a few weeks maybe before the event, just so we can see what their movements are or where they're typically located before the actual event in question that we're interested in.
And all of this has to be approved by a judge.
Correct.
And so, there's a lot of private information contained on your phone records. So you can't go overbroad and ask for like the entire cell phone history of this phone.
Correct. It's not a blank check, otherwise the warrant will get denied. So we can only ask for a reasonable window of time that would be relevant to what we're looking into.
And so this is the records that you received from Detective Ozawa associated with Andrea Reyes' phone.
Correct.
And show us what's relevant about the mapping related to this phone.
So if we zoom out a little bit, we'll see that it's in the state of Oregon. I don't have the state lines here, but this is California. Las Vegas is right here where my mouse hand is. And then up here, just north of California, we have an area in Oregon. And I can even turn on some borders and labels so we can actually see a little bit more familiar. So here we have the state of Oregon. Zoom in down here to southwest Oregon. That's where all of the records are at. It started automatically zooming in because there were no records outside of this area. So for this particular phone number, the records are only in what you see on my screen right now. They never go anywhere else.
Got it. And so you as a detective, you don't have any information as to why Andrea Reyes may be relevant, may be irrelevant. You're just given this information and you're trying to figure out where her phone was at an operative time.
That's correct, and I prefer not to know that information so I can just review the records as they are.
Can you focus in on the late evening hours of August 6th, 23 through the early morning hours of August 7th?
Yep, and what I can do is I can either adjust the slider here to narrow my window of time, but since we have something specific, I can actually type it in as well. So what was the date range that you wanted again?
Let's go with 10 p.m. on August 6th into 2 a.m. on August 7th.
Okay.
So we don't have to redo this, actually. Can you just do noon on August 6th or noon on August 7th?
Sure. So noon from August 6th, Pacific Daylight Time, to August 7th. Noon again, Pacific Daylight Time. And then you can see here, it'll show what time zone I'm using. And again, this is Southwest Oregon. And these two towers, we can infer based off everything I just told you about how the cell towers and network coverage works. This is a good example actually of a rural area where there's not a lot of towers and there's multiple cities and geographic areas that one tower can actually service. And you'll see there's two main towers that the people in this valley utilize, and the records were bouncing back and forth depending on which one had the best signal.
Okay, so it looks like Ms. Reyes' phone was in Oregon during the operative time period we just provided.
Correct.
You can back out of, well, unless you want to illustrate that with the moving map.
This one's not a great one for it because, and this is where rural detectives might have some troubles because you don't get a lot of movement in rural areas just because there's not a lot of towers that service large geographic regions. So I can close this out if we're done with it.
Yeah.
And let's travel back to Las Vegas.
All right, so if you can exit out of, or don't exit, minimize Google Earth, go into the second folder there.
Okay.
What are we looking at here?
This is the provided files and mapped data for the phone number 702-561-9242.
And that was provided as Johnathan Willette CDRs.
Correct.
Let's open the provided files real quick. CDR records, original. What are we looking at?
So these are the records that they send. These records are going to be a little different because they obtained them in a different way from my understanding. They used live tracking, and when you request live tracking of a phone, they'll also send you the historical records that we've been talking about, but they don't label them as nicely for us. So.
Okay, so hold on a second. So we talked a little bit earlier about attempting to locate suspects, and you've used this technology before.
Correct.
If a particular phone is missing from a scene, they go a different route and request records in a different way.
Correct.
So they could actually go find that phone, and you don't know how that phone was ultimately found, whether they used this or they just happened upon it.
Correct.
Okay, go ahead.
So we can open up the files though. This is the table of contents I was talking about that the previous records and other T-Mobile records come with. It's actually pretty easy to look through, and I believe you all will have access to this. But it tells you literally what every single one of those columns and rows means. It gives you some reference examples, and then it gives you some stuff that is not as important. However, it explains the date, it tells you the format the date's in, the call type, and then this is where we can see what each one of those things mean. So MOC, mobile originating call, MTC, mobile terminating call. It'll tell you what the transaction was, if you really wanted to dive into it and see what each row was talking about. Let me close that out. The next one, and they didn't label them very well for us, this is the certificate of authenticity. Same thing that was provided with the previous records, and that's provided with all records for us to utilize. They're just saying that these are legitimate from our end, and they're true and correct as far as they have them stored. And then this is just a request form for us. So when we want to terminate the live tracking, we fill out this form and send it back to them. And then we can get into the subscriber information. This is an example of a more complete set of subscriber information.
And read for the record the subscriber name here.
That subscriber name is showing Johnathan /Tracy Willette /Baker.
Okay, and then there's a address associated with that.
Correct?
That subscriber address is what was given when the phone was initiated, correct?
That's correct.
Not, you can't glean from that address where the person lived at the time of any given incident.
No.
Okay. When was the activation date on this one?
11/13 of year 2020.
And then IMSI, same as we've described before.
Yep, same as we described before. The serial number for the SIM that they're using. MSISDN, which is again a fancy way of saying phone number. And that's going to be the target phone number for these records, which you'll see in the top left of every associated record as well.
Did you read that into the record?
The phone number for the record we're looking at? It is area code 702-561-9242.
Okay. Close out of that, move on to the next. And you're hitting don't save, I noticed, every time. You're leaving this exhibit in the condition the exhibit is going back to the jury.
Correct. Yeah, I'm not changing anything. So when I click around, sometimes you'll see like that column collapsed into a different number format. I don't want it to save like that. I want it to stay the way that we received the record. So I'm just saying don't save.
Got it. What's
The next one would be, and this is why I have another folder that says functional format.
Oh, okay. What does that mean?
That just means that they sent me a weird format. It's Microsoft Excel 97 to 2003. So that was the way they saved it on their end. So what I was able to do, it just asked me if I wanted to convert it to a format that my computer can read, which I did, which is why I made this functional format folder. So now we click that, and it'll actually open up.
Okay. And so again, we're working with T-Mobile records for Johnathan.
Yes.
And all the columns that we went through previously, that would apply to this record as well?
Yep, the same record.
And so we're clear, this is in UTC as we look at it now.
Yes.
So any mapping you did with regard to Jonathan's phone would have been converted over.
That's correct.
Okay.
And they tell you at the top, They remind us that all times are in UTC, and then they tell you the actual time frame of the records at hand. So these records are from 6/1 of 2023 to 8/7 of 2023. And so it's a lot longer, and this is why we use programs to map them, and we don't do it by hand, because there are thousands and thousands and thousands of rows, all the way down to almost 6,000 transactions in this one set of records.
Now, these particular records end on August 7, 2023 at 8:55 p.m. UTC.
Correct.
I hate to put you on the spot to do math, but what is that in Pacific time?
Oh, that should be 1:55 in the morning.
1:55 in the morning?
Or, sorry, no, we're PM. 1:55 in the afternoon.
Okay. And so you wouldn't know if that device was actually found at that time by the detective?
No.
Okay.
And then nothing really to go over otherwise. It has the date, the time, and UTC, like we said, and then you'll have to be on the spot and subtract 7 with a 12 in the mix to figure out the time.
And let me correct my language. I said you wouldn't know if the phone was found at that time. It could have been seized at that time. You just don't know.
Yeah, that's correct. I don't know the details of the device itself. I'm just operating off of what the network provided us.
Close out of that.
Okay.
And timing is new.
Yes.
So let's go into this and describe how this is different from what we've seen with Ms. Ray's.
So these are, we map them as the timing arcs. So when I showed you all those crisscrossing arcs, this is where that comes from. It's a separate document. And again, it uses that echo ping to calculate the distance from the network. There is a way to map it with lat longs, but it's not as accurate as GPS, and they give us weird confidence levels. So instead, I map it as the arcs because we actually know how that works, and there's more confidence involved with it. And it tells us some of the same stuff we've seen before, like the IMSI, the IMEI. It tells us the phone model, and then it will tell us the actual time as we scroll over. It'll tell us the time of the transactions, and the way that I map it, and the best practices and industry standard way of mapping this kind of information is utilizing those arcs, and it measures the distance here in these columns. But it's using the same cell towers, same location information, same date and time, same device information. The only difference with timing is it's using those antennas, and it's calculating the distance from the antenna whenever they're sending that little ping signal to the phone, and the phone's sending it back.
Okay. Close out of that unless there's anything more to talk about.
Nope.
And we go into mapped data.
So in mapped data.
Go ahead, I'll let you kind of take the floor with this.
Sure, and so what I like to do, I use CastViz and Trax. There's a lot of different mapping programs out there. They all do essentially the same thing. They take all of those spreadsheets we just looked at, and then they will convert all of that into visual data that we can see on a map. It'll take the lat long, it'll take the facing. We know which direction the antennas face because in those records it provides what we call an azimuth, and that's the direction in 360 degrees with north being 0. It tells us how many degrees that tower is facing. So we know all of that information so that we can put it on a map. And you can actually map these records by hand. But again, we use the software because I don't have time to map 6,000 records per transaction. I use CastViz and Trax primarily, and I like to map it with both because then I validate the software off of each other. As long as I'm getting the same result with both software, I know that they're doing their job. And then I like to get into the records as well and verify a couple points of interest just to make sure, again, that the software is doing its job, which it reliably does, and it's trusted in the industry.
So you actually go in and just kind of point check the work that the software does?
Yes.
And you actually do the mapping with the lat long?
Yes. Yep. And I even like to go in sometimes with Google Earth, for example. You can go in and you can see the street view. I like to go in and you can visually confirm. You can use Street View to see that there's a cell tower there. So sometimes I just like to make sure that the software is doing its job correctly and all of the data is correct.
Good. Which one are we going to work off of here?
CastViz, I include Trax, and Trax is the one that makes that big kind of potato shape. I use that kind of illustratively. However, I rely predominantly on CastViz just because it gives us the raw data that's in the spreadsheets. It gives us the antenna, it gives us the sector width, so it's not inferring or adding anything. It's a little more sterile, and a little more basic. So I like to work off of CastViz. So for the remaining exhibits, I'm going to be showing CastViz stuff. For these, though, I mapped them all together if you would like to. So for these remaining files, we can go through before opening the actual mapping because
because you have them all included?
I was able to make it so I can open them all at once and then we can select.
Okay, before we do that, go in and open up the, slow down here.
Sorry.
Before we do that, back out, go to the CDR mapping. Folder number 3 is what?
It's marked as phone number 702-677-4430, Devyn Michaels CDRs.
Open that. Provided files, CDR records, and certificate of authenticity. So now we're finally seeing an AT&T logo, is that right?
Correct.
So what we talked about earlier was T-Mobile records. They're kept a little bit differently than AT&T records, correct?
Yes.
Pull out or close out of this. This is just the normal certificate of authenticity saying these are the records for this number.
Correct. Same concept.
And then what are these extra folders?
So we have 2 different folders. They send it as a zip file, so I preserve that, and then we extract it. So if we click the zip file, you'll see a bunch of records in it. So then I will unzip the file so it's computer friendly, and it's a copy of the file. So I left the zip copy there because that's how they send them. It just compresses it so it can go through email.
Got it. So let's open up the uncompressed or decompressed version.
Yep. So the uncompressed. There's 2 different sets, by the way. They requested the timing, I believe, after the fact. Or we got 2 different sets of records through 2 different requests. So yeah, this is the timing. So this is the main one where we have the actual call records, if you want to get into that.
Yes, please.
So let me open up the key first. Similar to the T-Mobile key, they give you a reference key just because it's too much to be able to memorize or know what all of these things are when they send it to regular detectives. So everything is defined, everything that you would need to reference. So when it's talking about cell locations, it gives you details on how it works, deeper than what we need to go into today. But it's given you the actual site IDs for the cell towers, it's given you the lat longs, and then it's given you the actual beam widths, which is how wide we make that wedge. It's almost always 120 degrees. And then it gives you some definitions. So there's just a lot of good information in here that I refer to frequently whenever I see something weird in the records that I don't understand or that I want to know more about. And it explains how it all works. And then they give the files to us in 2 different ways. So they give it to us as a PDF, which is more human-friendly. And the report AU for AT&T is the call detail records with all the phone and text transactions. And then they also put their data in one sheet.
Well, we'll get to that in a moment.
Sure.
This looks different from the T-Mobile records, so let's kind of go through the columns real quickly.
Yes.
Go ahead.
So different but still similar. So at the top left, you'll still always see the target phone number. And for this record, it's 702-677-4430. At the top, they're letting you know that these are in UTC time, so you got to do some math if you want to convert it to your local time, which my software does. And then you're going to have the same columns. They're nice enough to give us a row number for their columns. And then they also give us the date, the time. They give us the originating number, the terminating number of the call, so both sides of the call transaction again. We see the familiar IMEI, which is the serial number for the device. We see the familiar IMSI, which is the caller serial number for their SIM card. And then it gives us the locations of the towers that's being used.
You can close out of that, and did we skip over the subscriber on this one?
That one might have been in the other folder here. This would be the subscriber information.
Okay, just for the record, who's the name on that?
The name on this is Devyn Michaels.
And the address?
The address on record is 5510 Porcupine Rim Street, Las Vegas, Nevada, 89130.
And does this one show activation date like the other ones did? Service start date?
Yeah, it shows
that.
Where'd you see it?
Right.
Here we are, active time. So the MSISDN, and remember that's the acronym for phone number, active on 11/23/2021 to now, or when we pulled the records.
Got it. Okay, you can close out of that. Thought we'd skip that. What else would we do?
They give us a couple different things, and for some reason they'll send it as a separate file. But the IMEI is saying for this phone or this IMEI, this is the phone number that's associated with it as of this time, 7/10/2023. And then the phones will often have. Sometimes we'll see two of these, just because you can have different SIMs inside one device. So they'll send us a report though if there's any serial numbers associated with the phone number and the actual device. But that's the whole page. They do it as a separate page for some reason. Same with the IMSI, which remember is a serial number essentially for the SIM card.
Okay.
And then location. So AT&T has this proprietary way of locating devices that they don't even fully explain to us because it's part of their secret sauce. But it's called Location Database of Record. It's unreliable, I've found, and a lot of experts in the field have found, so I haven't mapped anything with this. However, it is possible. It gives you GPS-like points, but if you look at the column over here, it says location accuracy unknown. And I don't like dealing with unknowns. I like stuff I can explain and information and data that I can actually source and rely on. So when they're saying location accuracy is unknown for these latitude and longitudes they're providing, that's worthless to me, so I don't map them.
Got it.
And then timing advance is what we're already familiar with. That's that sonar ping that it sends to the device and back. And then they have a whole separate file for that as well. Similar again, has the phone number, the IMSI, the date, and then it gives us the latitude and longitude of the cell towers. And then it even has the sector orientation. This is the azimuth. That's where on the 360-degree compass that it's facing. So we know which way that antenna is facing. We know exactly the lat long of the tower. That's how we're able to map it.
Okay, you can close out of that. Before you go into your overlaid mapping, back out one.
And this was the other folder as well. But
Okay.
they just break up their records, and this is not relevant to our mapping.
Okay, so we can back out now, go to the main folder, CDR mapping. And then go down to the next one. For the record, what's that entitled?
The next one, phone number 707-628-1336, Deviere Willette CDRs.
Provided files, CDR records and timing advance.
Yeah, and again, they sent it as two separate, so I just broke that up. But
So
CDR
let's go to
records.
CDR records, go to the, well, the certification is the certification, right?
Yes.
Is there a subscriber sheet for this one?
Yes. So subscriber sheet. And again, at the top left, it has the phone number 707-628-1336. This is again T-Mobile records.
And this has a subscriber name of Joseph Sands and a address out in California, correct?
Correct.
And you don't know if Joseph Sands is a family member, Mr. Willette, or anything, that's just the info that was given to T-Mobile.
Correct.
Activation date?
Activation date, it's showing 3/1/2010. And then the same information we had on the previous records.
All right, and then this one says there's data sessions,
Correct.
and then CDRs, which we've already gone through.
Correct.
Back out one folder, and then go to timing advance. So this also has timing advance records.
Correct.
So this particular device, we have CDRs, timing advance, and data sessions.
Correct.
Is that just more information you can glean from the records?
Yes.
Okay. You can go ahead and back out.
Okay.
Before we go into our mapping, there's a folder entitled Google well, let me skip that for a moment. NDCAC Tower List, what does that mean?
So that's NDCAC. That's an organization that's managed by the FBI. It's a subset of the FBI. It's the National Domestic Communications Assistance Center, something along those lines. But they're a resource that we have that we partner with the FBI on. I have access to a lot of their resources that they provide law enforcement. That's where I downloaded CastViz from. So they have tools on there such as CastViz for mapping software. They have a lot of other tools. One of the tools that they provide is tower lists. So sometimes the carriers will neglect to send us the tower lists on a search warrant. NDCAP keeps a database of all tower lists from a certain time period so that we can have something for that call detail record to grab onto. Because without the tower list, there's no way to map it.
Got it. So you don't need to go out and drive around and see where the towers are. This is the tower list of
Correct.
the operative time period listed on the folder.
Correct.
Okay.
So I have those as a resource, just in case we're missing towers or something like that. Or if it'll show half of my records weren't mapped, then I know that they must have neglected to send me the full tower list. So I just go in and I get the full tower list.
Okay. So before you go into your overlay mapping, there's a folder entitled Google Location Map.
Yes.
Is that included in your overlay mapping, or should we handle that separately?
That I can include it. I already created a separate exhibit for it that we can
Okay.
open up.
Okay, well, let's go into it first, and
Okay. So Google location data.
then it says 3 folders, first step, second step, third step.
Correct.
Those records were also provided to you by Detective Ozawa,
Correct.
and this is a little different from CDRs from a cell phone company.
Correct.
This is from Google directly, correct?
Yes.
If you can open one of the folders, or if you need to go into all 3, to explain generally what type of data you are mapping with regard to Google location data.
Yeah, so with Google, and I'll take it from the top a little bit just to be able to explain it. What Google does is when you start up a new phone and you download a Google-based application and you're signing their big long privacy document and check I understand, inside of that they are giving themselves permission to collect data related to, among other things, your location. And Google will use that for analytics. They use it for advertising purposes. They're storing as much information as they can grab from your phone. So what they're programming into their applications on your device is the ability to read locations from GPS, from cell towers, from Wi-Fi, and then it's sending, your device is sending all of that back to Google, and then they're keeping a database of it. So similar to how the cell carriers are storing all of your information for when you're making calls and sending texts, Google does the same thing on their end as well. And so what we're able to do is we're able to ask Google for this information, but it's a little bit of a complicated process. When Detective Ozawa did this, I've done a few of them a few years ago when I was a property crimes detective. But what Google does to protect the privacy of their customers is they require a search warrant, and we'll ask for a geofence. So we will look for any devices. We'll ask Google, do you have any devices that said they were in this geographic area? And we'll draw a square or a shape, and inside of that geographic area, we'll send them all the coordinates so that they know the shape.
At a given time.
At a given time. So at a certain time period, so maybe this week in August, we're looking for any devices that entered this location. Or we can make it as narrow as this 10-minute period. We want any devices that you, Google, logged inside of this geographic area. What they send us back is a spreadsheet of, it's called obfuscated IDs. So they send us, it's a bunch of random numbers, and every device has a long random number associated with it. And we can map it still, but we have to pick out based on that, hey, we're interested in these 3 different ID numbers. And they don't give us any information on who it belongs to. They don't tell us if it's a phone or a microwave. They don't tell us anything other than it was at this location, and this is the arbitrary number that we gave it for your purposes. If we find a device of interest that we see moving around in that area or in the area of interest at that time, we send those numbers back to Google for a second step, and we say, hey, we want more information on this, or we would like the subscriber information and identities on this, and then that's what the various steps are. Detective Ozawa would have to go into more details of what he was requesting each step, but that's how they do it, just so the customer data is initially anonymous. Because if we do a bank robbery at 12 o'clock in the afternoon, we're going to capture a lot of innocent people whose privacy is completely unrelated to what we're investigating. So we have to try to pick out what we think are the suspect devices. That way we're not just arbitrarily violating everybody's privacy who happened to be there at the time.
And in this particular case, did you or Detective Ozawa receive Google location data ultimately in the 3rd step for 1 or more devices?
I believe he got multiple devices, but I only focused on one in particular. This should be, yeah, he got, looks like 1, 2, 3, 4 of interest that he picked out.
Okay, and they're titled Johnathan Willette, Devyn Michaels, Tracy Baker, and Yoko.
Yes, and each file has an associated file that is the original zip from Google, but he didn't want to change the actual file, so in good practices, he made a copy of it, and then he noted which one was which.
Got it. And so I believe you said you narrowed it down or focused on one. Was that the victim, or Johnathan Willette's
Correct.
device?
Yes.
And what type of information did you get before you go into the mapping part that allowed you to map Johnathan Willette's device?
So they gave us, let me see if I can pull it up. The information they send you, and just so you know what I'm looking at, the information that they send you, this is like the billing information, so that we can see, once we ask for, hey, what's this big long number, and you can see up here, these are the big long numbers they provide us. What's this big long number, who's associated with it, so they send it back, and they tell us it's based off this billing information, and then a lot of times we'll get suspect information, or we'll get, whoever is in charge of those accounts, so Google Pay, billing info, and then you'll see, for example, this one says Johnathan Willette when I click down into the folders. So similar to the CDRs, they give us customer information once we finally know what numbers of interest we're requesting.
And what type of location data are we talking about? Are we talking about interactions with Google or interactions with cell towers?
So for the location data, it could be interactions with cell towers. In these particular records, though, the location data that they had sent back was interactions with GPS and interactions with Wi-Fi. Because remember, this is all information that Google is telling your device to send to them. They're getting into the GPS databases, they're getting into the Wi-Fi databases on your phone, and telling your phone to send them all of that information that they're storing.
Got it. Anything else foundationally we need to do with these records, or can we go now into the big mapping?
Well, just to show you what the records look like, this is the reverse location obfuscated ID. So this is what they send us, and this is associated with each device, has its own unique one of these. That's just the number Google gives us so that we don't know who it is, we don't know what kind of device it is, we just know it's a device, and this is the number they associate. So during the other steps, Detective Ozawa would have requested, hey, I want more information on this number, tell me more, with another court order, and then they send it back. This is the actual location information they sent back for it, and we know that it is Jonathan's based on the billing information that I just opened, and then they provide us timestamp, they provide us the latitude, the longitude, they provide us a display radius, which is their version of accuracy. So they give us a certain radius of accuracy. So if you ever pull up Google Maps on your phone, you'll see the little dot, and then you'll see a more blurry dot surrounding it. That's the accuracy region. So you're somewhere, probably, according to your GPS or your device, somewhere within that. Google pulls that information, and then they preserve that as well. So a radius of 100 meters, if we expand it out a little bit, they say it's meters. So they're saying that there is a Wi-Fi source at this location, and if you're connected to it or you're seeing it, you could be within 100 meters of this location here. So you get a 100-meter radius, basically, of where the device probably is.
Okay. Anything else you need to explain foundationally, or can we move into the map?
No, foundationally, otherwise, it sounds like you all are already familiar with GPS and how that works. When we're talking Wi-Fi, though, it is important to note that based on their databases and crowdsourcing, Google maintains a whole database of Wi-Fi networks. For example, every time you connect to one, they're taking that information and they're making a database and storing it. With Wi-Fi, when it gives us the location, it's giving us the location of where they believe approximately that Wi-Fi network is at, or where that router that creates that Wi-Fi coverage area is at. So if you're connected to it, it's likely that you're anywhere within that 100 meter radius. However, you're not necessarily at the dot. You could be connected to it from the edge of the radius, and sometimes a little bit beyond. It's not perfect.
Got it.
All right, let me back out of all these files. Okay.
Okay. So how best and most succinctly can you explain for the jury what you did with the mapping for all four of the, well, I should say all three of the phone numbers, because Andrea we've kind of excluded at
Yeah.
this point, and the Google.
Andrea is still in this. So what I did, that first file that I opened up for Andrea up in Oregon, what I'm able to do is I can open all of those files up in Google Earth, and I can just combine them, and you'll see that in a moment what that looks like. But I just create a folder inside Google Earth, and then I can save that as another Google Earth file so that everything's included and we can open it all up at once. So let me do that. So we have Google Earth open. I like to open it from Google Earth. And so I will open up this is my CastViz mapping with all 4 phone numbers. And it might take a second because it's a lot of data. As you saw, some of those sheets are 6,000 items long, and my computer is now processing thousands and thousands of items at once. So it zoomed out because there's some activity up here in Oregon that we're already familiar with, as you can see. That's what we saw before. I'm going to uncheck that, and what I just did is I opened the file that I created. There's a drop-down. It's basically a Google Earth folder system. So I created a few points of interest, so that way we can easily see them and we don't have to keep trying to type it in and guess where they're at.
A few or 2?
2.
Okay.
2 points of interest. And then that is 5510 Porcupine Rim Street, Las Vegas, Nevada, 89130. And the second one is 2698 Paladura Drive, Henderson, Nevada, 89074. I'm going to uncheck, just to help my computer with processing, Andrea Reyes, the 702-353-3823 phone number, and when I uncheck it, it's no longer displaying her information anymore. Let me go down to Las Vegas here. And so the 3 phones, cellular device records that I have up now is the number ending in 9242, the number ending in 1336, and the number ending in 4430 for Johnathan Willette, Deviere Willette, and Devyn Michaels.
Okay, so let's narrow this down a little bit to the evening hours of August 6, 2023.
And I'm just dialing in the time now because we're displaying almost a whole week of data at once, so we're just narrowing that to the relevant time period.
Let's do 7 p.m. Change that to P.
So 7 p.m. on the 6th.
Yep, and then I guess 9 a.m. on the 7th.
Sure.
And if the jury wants to see outside that range that I picked as an example, they can go into this box on the exhibit itself and they can change that stuff.
Yeah, as long as they have Google Earth on the computer they're using. And yours, if you are looking at it, yours might crash. This is an expensive computer that's made to do this, so that's why I brought it today.
Oh, well, now
but I do have, yeah.
I was going to say, you made some backups in the event that happened.
I made some videos for y'all as well.
Okay. Do you need to explain that now or afterwards?
Whatever you prefer. I would like to be able to play the videos, just because it's set at the perfect speed and everything's easy to just have up.
Okay, so before we get there though,
Yeah.
just representative-wise, you've unclicked Andrea Reyes, so now we have the records associated with Johnathan Willette, Deviere Willette, Devyn Michaels.
Correct.
Next to the names on the left, it says the colors. Johnathan is in blue, Deviere is in green, Devyn is in red.
Correct.
And so anytime we see green on that map, it represents Deviere. Anytime we see blue on that map, it represents Johnathan. Anytime we see red, it represents Devyn.
Correct.
Okay. Would you prefer to go into the videos and play those?
Yeah, it might be better to play the videos, and I can keep this up in the background too. We can go in and look at stuff live. The benefit of being able to do this is just so we can, for example, we can zoom in on records, and in Google Earth without having to have my mapping software because I exported it to Google Earth. If your computer can handle it, you can go in and you can click and you can see the information that it's pulling to map those records and a little bit more detail about it, because as you're clicking around, you can see if a call transaction, this is just timing advance because it's zeros, but you can see how long certain calls are. For example, this one was 2 minutes and 9 seconds for this transaction that used this particular tower and antenna facing. So it's just something you can click around and explore. This is what I do investigatively when I'm trying to determine information based off of the cell records.
Got it.
But let me pull up the videos that I made because those are less likely to crash.
And the jury will have access to these videos too.
Correct. Yep.
And that's not linked to Google. That's like a screen record of you doing this prior to court.
Yes. So I used Google Earth and you're able to. It's gonna freak out when I do it right now, but
Well, don't do it. Okay.
well, we can. We'll leave that. So I can hit this play button though. I just haven't adjusted the speed, but you can change the speed. And if I hit play, it'll slowly start going through whatever time window I have. So the time slider will move through time, and it's kind of like the snake game. If you have a large enough time window, you'll see at the head of the snake transactions are popping up, and after a couple seconds, you'll see the tail of the snake falling off. And it's good to have that window of time instead of just a point, because you can kind of see the history and where the snake is coming from when you play it. Instead, you'll have points popping up if you don't trail it a little bit. And I'll show you what that looks like in the video here.
What time frame are we looking at for the red?
So the time frame we're looking at is similar, and I have it back out a little bit. I put it in the file names so that we know. The time frame you're looking at is going to be 1900, which is 7 p.m. on August 6th, and then it goes until 2 p.m. the next day on August 7th. I have it set so that every second that passes in our lives right now is approximately a little less than a minute on the display. I can slow my playback time down a little bit if it's too fast and we want to pause it and go back. We can manipulate this however we want. But let me just hit play. So we're starting at 7 p.m. on the night of August 6th. The blue is Johnathan's records, and the red, okay, I hit play. The red will be Devyn's, and then the green will be Deviere. And you can see up here at 55 Porcupine, you'll see some red and some green popping up, indicating that they're in that geographic area. You'll see down at 2698 Paladura, you'll see the blue. And from Porcupine, this is that snake I was telling you about. You can see the device traveling based off the nearest cell towers. From Porcupine down to Paladura Drive, just got there around 8 p.m. the night of the 6th.
Well, there's been flashes of green up at the Porcupine Rim.
Okay.
Correct?
Yes.
Let's just put that into the record when you do see it. Go ahead.
Okay. And so what we just saw was the red records, Devyn's records, appearing to travel down. And you'll often see that you can infer what street people are even on based on how the records travel. So I'll back it up a little bit so you can see that traveling again. But this is what it looks like with the timing and the cell tower data when somebody's moving through a city and they're getting handed off to the next best cell towers as they travel.
Before you move on,
Sure.
just real quick, we see these devices lighting up. Sometimes they're right next to each other. Does that necessarily mean they're communicating with each other, or they're just communicating?
No, this is just general. So the way that I mapped it is I mapped all the timing, all the data, all the calls, everything for each person as one color. So everything in red, if you see red, it could be either data source, it could be call records, it could be text messages, it could be anything that involves the cellular network. That's all it's showing is just activity for that device and which cell tower they were using.
Okay.
And let me play again. So again, it's 7:50 p.m. on the night of the 6th, traveling down to 2698 Paladura Drive, or the geographic area thereof at least. And then at the top, you see some green flashes of Porcupine Rim Street. And at 2698 Paladura Drive, you're seeing a lot of red and blue activity.
And the green is still showing up at Porcupine Rim.
The green's still showing up at Porcupine Rim, and now at about 8:45, we see them. It looks like they're traveling together, or appearing to. You see red and blue popping up, and then ending up at Porcupine Rim Street. And let me pause it, because it's important to note that you don't get an exact minute-by-minute play. It's whenever the device has activity. So a lot of times you'll see gaps, just because the device isn't doing anything at those times.
You'll see gaps in the time.
Yeah, and you'll see gaps in activity, because you're not going to get a perfect line when somebody moves. Like, they'll disappear for a second, and you'll see them pop up a few blocks away, just because the device wasn't doing anything at that moment.
Go ahead.
So now all three devices are showing up at Porcupine Rim Street. We have some green, we have some blue, we have some red, all overlapping in the geographic area of Porcupine Rim.
And we have blue and red heading back, and for the record, what time is that?
So blue and red heading back, and they're arriving back in the area at 2698 Paladura Drive at approximately 10 p.m.
So Jonathan's cell phone is activating on the way back to the Paladura residence at 9:50 something?
Yeah, and we can back it up a little bit. So they're traveling there at about 9:45. They're about halfway between Porcupine Rim Street and Paladura Drive in the middle of the city, and you can see both devices are showing up. I do have a trailing of time, so if the red just had a transaction and the blue didn't, you'll still see the blue a little bit back. It doesn't mean they're not traveling together. It doesn't mean they are traveling together, but they have activity in the same area. They appear to be traveling around the same time. So we're traveling down from Porcupine Rim Street, it looks like, and it looks like based on the towers that they're hopping and handing off to, traveling towards the geographic area of 2698 Paladura Drive. We're only seeing the blue, Johnathan's, and the red, Devyn's records, traveling right now. And the green records, Deviere, is still showing up at Porcupine Rim. So at about 10 o'clock, it looks like the blue and the red are now utilizing cell towers in the geographic area of 2698 Paladura Drive.
Green is popping up at Porcupine Rim at about 10:26.
Yep, and now at 10:30, we're still seeing blue and red at Paladura, and we're seeing more green at Porcupine Rim as we come up on 10:45. Coming up on 11 o'clock now. 11 o'clock, we're still seeing, let me freeze it, it's 11:04 p.m. on the night of the 6th. We're seeing green cellular device network activity for Deviere up at 5510 Porcupine Rim. And down here on the bottom of the screen, you see we're not seeing as much blue activity anymore, but we're still seeing red for Devyn at 2698 Paladura Drive.
Pause there for a second. So just because we're not seeing blue down at Paladura does not mean the device isn't still at Paladura.
Correct.
It means it's just not interacting or doing things.
Correct. It's just not, for whatever reason, it's not engaging with the network. Obviously, the more you use your device and the more you're doing stuff on it, the more you're going to have activity reflected through the network, whether it's calls, data, stuff like that. If you're not touching your device, it goes dormant, and it's unless you have something in the background running, like music playing, you're not going to have a network connection, and then we're not going to see anything in the actual records.
Go ahead.
So coming up on 11:15, we see some red at 2698 Paladura Drive, a blip of blue at approximately 11:20, and again at 11:28. And if I remember correctly, that's the last we see of the blue at around 11:30 at night on the 6th at Paladura Drive.
On this, please.
Yes, on this.
Google a little bit different.
Correct. And we had a blip of red at...
Sorry, let me stop you.
Go ahead.
Green just popped up at Porcupine Rim.
Correct.
What time was that?
And if we want to go to the live, we can get a little bit more into that as well. But
No, that's okay.
at about 11:35 p.m., we see green at Porcupine Rim. And I'll watch for it now more. At midnight, we see green at Porcupine Rim Street. We're still seeing red activity down at Paladura Drive, and that's at about 12:25. And we just saw some green at around 12:25 as well up at Porcupine Rim Street. This is half an hour past midnight. Seeing a little more activity by the red down at Paladura. More green at 12:55 at Porcupine Rim. More red at Paladura at about 1:05 in the morning. And at about 1:18 in the morning, we're seeing more green at Porcupine Rim for Deviere. And for Devyn, we just saw at 1:30 Paladura Drive again. And this is all in the morning. At about 1:45, we just saw more green at Porcupine Rim.
Pause it. So when we're seeing green flashing into these late night, early morning hours, does that mean that the Deviere phone is actively communicating, or does that mean something else?
Not necessarily. We'd have to check the records themselves. What I just saw coming up, just from mapping these records so much, were the timing arcs. So for whatever reason, the cellular network was pinging the phone. And then we can even get into the records to see exactly what they're doing on it, because we'll be able to see if they sent a text message at a certain time or a phone call. But usually when you're manipulating your device, we'll see a lot more of that signaling.
So this could be just signaling from the network to the device.
Correct.
We could be asleep for all we know.
Yeah, sometimes the network's doing that on its own.
Okay. If you can resume it.
And again, we're at about 2 a.m. right now, 2 in the morning. The time showing is 2:03. We have red at Paladura Drive, and we have green at Porcupine Rim. and I'll hit play again. 2:05, 2:08, 2:10 in the morning, and now we see the red. It appears to be leaving the geographic area of Paladura Drive.
Okay, back up, sorry. Go to around 2 o'clock.
It's 2:04.
Okay, so 2:04, the red phone appears to still be down at 690 Paladura.
Correct.
Go ahead.
We hit play. So we're coming up on 2:10, 2:15, and the device appears to be in motion, traveling towards the geographic area of 5510 Porcupine Rim Street.
Okay.
And it looks like around 2:40, they appear to be entering that general geographic area, and we're not seeing anything from blue down here at Paladura anymore. And now we're just playing in the morning here. It's coming up on 3:20 in the morning. We see some
flashing
green
at Porcupine.
and some red still flashing at Porcupine.
Can you note that when the green flashes at Porcupine? You don't need to stop it. Just
Yeah, at approximately 4 a.m. we have green and red both appearing at Porcupine Rim Street, and it's continued into the early hours of 4. We're coming up on 4:30 now, and we still see more red flashing at Porcupine Rim. 4:40, we saw some green flashing at Porcupine Rim.
And again, without going into the records, you don't know if that's just passive activity on the phone or active activity.
Correct, it's just all activity has been met. And then we're coming up on 5:30 in the morning now. We see some red flashing and some green flashing at Porcupine Rim Street. We're coming up on 6 a.m. Sun's starting to come up. We have some red flashing around 6:30 and some green flashing around 6:30 in the morning at Porcupine Rim Street. Red again, closer to almost 7 o'clock at Porcupine Rim Street. Now we're into the 7 a.m. hour. We see some green, Porcupine Rim, red, Porcupine Rim. And now,
Yep, you missed it. There we go.
at around 7:25, we now have red, green, and blue all appearing at Porcupine Rim Street. So we had some blue for Johnathan pop up now at Porcupine.
Okay, so you don't need to go back to it in the exhibit, but if I recall correctly, the blue phone didn't have any activity after a certain hour, and this is going to be the first time it pops up on these records at 7, and it's across.
Correct. The last time we saw the blue previous to this was around 11:30 at night, the previous night at Paladura Drive.
Got it. You can respond.
Now we're seeing some green, some red, and it's coming up on 7:45 in the morning now at Porcupine Rim.
Now green starts to move about 7:50.
Yep, green starts to move around 7:50, traveling southeast. Red is still up at the geographic area of Porcupine Rim, and blue as well, showing up now at 8:20. Green's still traveling, looks like they're traveling southeast towards Henderson, as we still see more red and blue popping up at the Porcupine Rim Street geographic area.
And I don't think you know really any facts about this scenario, but
No.
the green appears to go across town. It does not go to the Paladura address around 8. It goes somewhere else.
Correct. Based on these records, the device is showing closer. This is Boulder Highway over here on the bottom right, and that's where the green appears to have ended up. And then obviously we all know what it looks like if they were in the geographic area of Paladura, which they are not at this time.
And you wouldn't be aware of that particular phone's owner said he was working that day. None of that is on your radar. This is just based on the record.
I know none of those details. Correct.
Go ahead.
Continuing, it's again 9:10 in the morning now. We're seeing red and blue popping up at Porcupine Rim. And this is important to note, those are those two towers that service that same geographic area that we talked about at the beginning. That's why I made that screenshot of it, so you can see those two towers are the ones that we're seeing popping up. And I have another video that has a closer view of it. But at 9:30, we're seeing red, blue. 9:40, we're seeing red, blue at Porcupine Rim. And the green for Deviere appears to be down near Boulder and Lake Mead and Henderson.
Sorry to interrupt you.
Yes.
So the red appeared to leave around 10 a.m. is a rough estimate.
Around 9:45 a.m.
9:45. And then I saw a little flash of blue that suggests that the blue one is left up at Porcupine.
Correct.
Did I see that?
Yes. There is still a flash of blue at the same cell tower that services the geographic area of Porcupine Rim Street. And then we see that snake trail for the red appearing to travel southbound. And the green for Deviere, because I know we're keeping track of three things, is still down here near Lake Mead and Boulder area in Henderson. We hit play. We see the red traveling to the Summerlin area. The blue is still showing up at Porcupine Rim at that same cell tower.
Green's looking like it's moving.
Green's moving, but green appears to go even further south into Henderson.
Oh, it actually is. Is it cut off on our video?
It might be. We can go into the actual records if we wanted to follow more on green.
Okay. But it's available if the jury wants to.
Yeah, it's
it goes
available.
down.
But it goes down out of the picture here that we have cropped,
Okay.
but not near the Paladura.
Red's back up at Porcupine Rim in the 10 o'clock hour.
Correct. And then we see activity from green. And now we're coming up on 11:20 a.m.
Green looks like it's moving back toward north.
Yeah, we're getting some timing measurements from green based on cell towers in the Henderson area. And then we see red traveling back down again around noon. You see green still in that Boulder Lake Mead area, and then you see the red landing at noon at the Paladura Drive address.
Got it.
And then you can see the green still over here. To note, you might have seen those gigantic arcs from the green. Remember, those were timing advance. It could be anywhere along that arc. So not necessarily if it's showing an arc coming close to an area of interest. We can't say for sure whether or not it's actually on that line. It could be all the way across the city at the other end of the arc.
And these places where the green has all the crisscrossing,
Yes.
on the map, your map encompasses almost the entire Las Vegas Valley, correct?
Yes.
So it looks a couple inches away, but here we're talking about like a distance.
Oh, these are several miles.
Between Paladura
And where this location is, yeah, that's correct. All right, and we're coming up on 12:30 p.m. Red still showing up at Paladura Drive at approximately 12:50 p.m. Green is still showing activity somewhere near Boulder Highway. And then green appears to be moving north back towards the Porcupine Rim geographic area, and we saw a flash of blue as well around 1:20. And red is still down at Paladura Drive now, coming up on 1:45 p.m. And red is now traveling at approximately 1:45 p.m. northbound towards the geographic area of Porcupine Rim Street, where they're arriving at around 2:05 p.m. in the afternoon. Green is there as well now.
Okay. I think you can close out of this one.
Yep.
Before we need to take our recess, I want to get into the mapping of the Google stuff. What's these next ones?
These are all zoomed in a little bit. So I wanted to be able to show, this is from 9:45 to 2:30 in the morning at the zoomed in on Paladura. If we wanted to have a closer look, because I know when we looked at that overview, we may have wanted to look a little closer.
Why don't we go to the Google and we
Yeah.
can return to that if we need to,
Sure.
just in the interest of time.
Change my view so I can read my details. So I mapped the Google location, and we can also pull it up in the live. However, this is the video. So what I have here, and would you like me to explain a little bit about what it is?
Yes.
So from those files with step 1, step 2, step 3, where the detective requested location data from Google, they sent them back. We looked at the sheet. It shows the latitude, longitude, and the approximate radius.
In the specific record that's mapped here, it's only Wi-Fi locations, so there are no GPS locations. So as we're watching it, I mapped it as light blue. So light blue dots will be the Wi-Fi locations. What a cellular device is doing is if you open up your phone right now and you looked at Wi-Fi, you'll see a handful of available networks. Your phone just saw all of those networks, and it just told Google about it. And that's what we're requesting from Google. So you don't even have to connect. It's called a probe request. Your phone is just looking for networks to connect to. It's up to you if you decide to connect to them, if you have the password. However, just your phone seeing them gets logged by Google. And that's the location information that they're sending us. They know the location of these Wi-Fi points. And so when your phone sees them, that's another way that Google estimates your location for a lot of various reasons. But this is information we can request as law enforcement.
You just pointed out as though Google is George Orwell's big brother.
Yeah, watching us.
Yeah.
Yes.
So before you started, the CDRs for Johnathan Willette showed dead activity, no pun intended, but like dead activity between 11 p.m. and what time?
And around 7 or 8 a.m. the next day.
Okay, and at 11 p.m. it's showing at Paladura, at 7 or 8 it's showing up at Porcupine.
Correct.
This gives you a little more information.
Yep, so we had a lapse in cell network interactions. The phone wasn't being utilized to make calls or any logged data sessions with the network. However, the phone appears to have been on, and it was noticing Wi-Fi networks, and it told Google about it. And so this is what we got from Google about all the Wi-Fi networks and the locations of them that device saw. And the time right now is 2:04 a.m. on the 7th, so the morning of 2:04 a.m. at 2698 Paladura Drive, again on the morning of the 7th. Those light blue dots are the Wi-Fi location hits, and I overlaid it with the red CDR records for Devyn.
So does it appear
And I can
that...
slow it down. Go ahead.
Oh,
Let me just adjust. I'm just going to adjust the speed a little bit because that was kind of fast. But again, the light blue down at the bottom right, and the red is the CDR network records. The light blue is the Google records, and I mapped them and played them both together.
That's at 2:04, 2:07, 2:09. It appears that the Google Johnathan Willette device is moving away from the scene in the same path that the red Devyn Michaels device is.
Correct, around the same approximate times.
And the green is still popping up at Porcupine.
Correct. And all those blue dots are the known Wi-Fi access point locations that Google knows about that the phone is seeing. And then at about 2:45 in the morning, I zoomed in just so we can see it a little bit better. We have the red CDR records showing the geographic area of Porcupine Rim, and Wi-Fi is a bit more precise just because it doesn't go as far.
And the Johnathan Willette number appears to have landed at Porcupine Rim about 2:45.
Yeah, and it's been there. And then you can see all the dots are showing at...
Wait. You said it's been there. It landed there at 2:45, right? Correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, it's just showing up in the records. This is in the morning at 2:52 a.m. And throughout the night, that green for... Or I'm sorry, I was talking about Deviere for the green. But for the blue for Johnathan, landed there, correct?
Landed there at 2:45, around the same time as the Devyn Michaels
Yes.
device.
So the Devyn Michaels CDR records and the blue location data from Google for Johnathan landed there at around 2:45.
And in the meantime, the green has been consistently hitting at Porcupine.
Yeah, and that's what you'll see pop up, which is why I was mentioning it there. But zoomed in, it looks like Google doesn't tell us the Wi-Fi network that it's connecting to, only that it's connecting to a Wi-Fi network, that it's seeing one. But it appears to believe that it is one that is at that location.
Because it's the blue dot is directly on your little
Correct.
yellow house you got. All right. Court's indulgence. All right. Thank you, Detective. I will pass the witness, Judge.
All right, going to take a brief recess before we do cross-examination of the detective. Ladies and gentlemen, during this recess, you must not discuss or communicate with anyone, including fellow jurors or anyone regarding this case or its merits, either by voice, phone, email, text, internet, or other means of communication or social media. You must not read, watch, listen to any news or media accounts or commentary about the case. You must not do any research, such as consulting dictionaries, using the internet, or using record certificates. You must not make any investigation, test the theory of the case, recreate an aspect of the case, or in any other way investigate or learn about the case on your own. You must not form or express anything in regard to this case unless filed submitted to you. Okay, gentlemen, at 2:50, we'll be in recess till 3:05.
All rise for the jury.
Both parties stipulate to the presence of our jury.
Yes, sir.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. Defense, remember you're running for cross.
Just a few follow-up questions. When regarding to Deviere's phone, you said the name came back as a Joseph Sams on that when the subpoena returned?
I can pull it back up if you like. The subscriber
The
sheet.
subscriber information.
Let me pull that one back up. Correct. So for Deviere is the phone number that I was provided of 707-628-1336 for Deviere. The subscriber name is showing Joseph Sams.
And like you stated on previous, on direct, you're basically just given a file and you say, track these phones.
Correct.
And it's tracking the phones, not a person's movement.
Correct. Only the device itself.
So if a device is left at home, we're not going to catch that person because the device is at home.
Correct.
You said a couple times, I think a few times on direct, and I kind of just touched on it, that you don't like to know too much about the case or as little as possible.
Correct.
And basically you're given instructions by a detective superior to say, these are these numbers, I need to track them, trace them, and then you do that through your software.
Yes.
Did you have any more involvement on this case in collecting evidence, though?
Yes.
You canvassed around the area of Porcupine Rim, correct?
Correct.
You visited, I want to say it's about 17 locations.
Yes, that sounds about right.
Surveillance cameras.
Yeah, so I was tasked with trying to canvass for surveillance video for all the businesses on the nearby street corner.
So you're not like a guy in the chair in the back office. You're actually out doing the work, and you still go back and review it when it's given to you of what they want.
Well, now I am the chair in the back office. Back then, I was actually transitioning into the role that I'm in now. So I was still partially involved with the street side of it at that time.
So you actually had more information about this case than just, here's a file, track this phone.
Yes.
You knew a decent amount because you were out on in evidence at this time of this this incident.
Correct.
And you're given the phone numbers by the detective to track. You're not actually collecting all the devices. Let me clear that up. You're given a phone and they say track this through your software, correct?
No, I was just provided the phone number and the records that they had already obtained.
And those are provided to you by the detective.
Yes.
And if there's other phones that are collected during the investigation, you would know about that. You're just given the phones by the detective.
Correct.
So if there's phones that were left out or other devices, you don't know about them. You just were given what the detective wanted.
Correct.
Court's indulgence? No further questions, Your Honor.
All right. See?
No, thank you.
Do the ladies and gentlemen of the jury have any questions for this witness? Okay, seeing no response, no excuse, thank you very much for your testimony here today.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Do we need to unhook all of his stuff?
Yeah, I got to unpack a little bit.
Okay, would you go ahead and do that?
All right, thank you. Yep. Yeah, that one's my wire.